So hey, I'm Allison. I'm from Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, which is the opposite end of New York City. How's everybody doing? Everybody's good? Okay, so I believe Sarah told you a little bit about me. I run a bakery in Brooklyn. We've been around about 7 years. We're a mom and pop operation, yet we're known all over the world. I'm known in Australia, Philippines, Japan. I got this really cool article about me from a Japanese magazine that I cannot read at all, so if any of you read Japanese, give me your card afterwards, because I want to make sure they're not saying horrible things about me. But I look really hot in the photo, so I definitely. So how did I do this? And social media, you know, the biggest buzzword of all time. And a lot of times when people are talking about social media, especially on a collegiate level, you're talking about, you know, big businesses like McDonald's and HP and really stupid things like if you like McFlurries, retweet if you like McNuggets. And people do that. I don't understand that at all. But I have a small business. It started as me and my husband. That's it. Just the two of us in a tiny little kitchen in Brooklyn on a factory on a 6th floor filled with prostitutes and homeless people. It's much nicer now. Brooklyn's a weird freaking place. So how did I get known in Japan? And that's through Twitter. I much prefer Twitter to Facebook because A, Facebook makes you pay. They're bastards. They're like, this post is doing very well. Would you like to give us some money so more people see it? And also I've had a lot of problems with Facebook interactions in a way like a lot of people use it to complain, to harass you. So I'm not going to talk much about Facebook today. I'm definitely going to talk about Twitter. And Twitter started getting big right around the time that we started. And at first I didn't understand it. And I think like everybody, I know so many people my age, I'm 30, 34. So many people my age at this point still say, I don't know Twitter, it scares me, I'm not tweeting, which is like, it's so ridiculous. I mean, you all have Twitter accounts, right? All of you? So you all get it, okay? There's a huge segment of the population that still does not get it. And they're slowly easing into it. And they don't necessarily understand what's going on. So the most important thing with Twitter, from a small business perspective, is not just content. It's you. It's you personally. Our bakery is a mom and pop, like I've said about 15 times so far. And the mom and pop experience, if you can think back to when you were a kid and you still had that, either in New York or wherever you were. And I'm a native New Yorker, and we had this like kind of Main Street experience. My butcher around the corner from my house knew I had a smelling test every Friday. He knew the stuff that my mom liked. You know, I remember one time, it was like the best customer service story I've ever experienced. It's probably about like 1991. And this thing called a turducken had just come out. Has everybody heard of that? It's you take a turducken. Okay, so you take a chicken and you stuff it inside a duck. And you take the duck and you stuff it inside a turkey. And in between are layers of oyster stuffing. And it's something from New Orleans. Paul Prudhomme made it up, who was like a very, very large chef. And it was just an incredibly stupid idea. It was one of the first stupid ideas in food, which there have been many in the past 25 years. So we're at the butcher. My mom says, I saw this thing in Reader's Digest, turducken. Have you heard of it? And Richie's like 75 years old. He said, what's that? She tells him, and he's like, you gotta be kidding me. You know? And she's like, no, I saw it, you know, shows in the article. And then one day, it's Thanksgiving, we get the doorbell rings. And my mom goes outside, and nobody's there, and she looks down, and there's a package on the doormat. And she picks it up, and there's a card, she puts it up, and goes, I just want to see if I do it. I can, because I'm the best. Love, Richie. And those are the types of experiences that, I mean, here I am, 23 years later, I'm telling this story to you. And that creates moments, that creates customer loyalty, that creates people who really, they don't just like you, they love you. This guy sold meat, but it was more than that. It was somebody that I loved, somebody that was regular, and whenever somebody asks if you have a guy for something, especially where everyone's got a guy, say, oh, what's a good butcher? Richie is the best butcher. If you say anything else, you're wrong, because you're stupid, and this is why. And people are fanatical about that, fanatical about like the best pizza place, the best Chinese restaurant. And that's because we develop personal relationships with these people. So how How do you do that on the computer? How do you do that for somebody in Japan? How do you do that for somebody right next to you? And that's what makes Twitter so exciting for a mom and pop business. It's because people are not, when people come in now, people don't want to talk to you anymore. We're craving personal experiences. We are craving human interaction. But we're not getting it because we're on our damn phones all the time. And people are coming in, and I'm more guilty of this than anybody. I'm sitting at Dwayne Reed on my phone, and why am I on the phone? I'm checking Facebook, so I'm checking Twitter because I want somebody to talk to me. So there's that irony of people right in front of you, and we're not talking to them because we want as much human interaction as possible from our phones. So what if we give that to them? What if we use Twitter to reach people like that? What if we use Twitter to make people feel valued? To make them feel that they're part of the company? To make them feel like they're just kind of a part of the day? The other kind of crazy thing that we've seen in the last 10, 15 years is reality television, which is really kind of insane when you think about it because you're watching people go to work. Okay? It's like if you went to the post office and stood there for 8 hours, you could watch people work. And everybody hates the post office, but you put it on TV, and all of a sudden you're like, postal wars, traffic wars. You watch people give people tickets. There are people who will sit home for 8 hours for a marathon of watching people give parking tickets, which is stupid, but we still do it. Because we love that kind of voyeuristic look into other people's lives. We love seeing how other people are dealing with situations and the drama behind them. And when you have a small business, everybody kind of wants to start a small business. In their head, they do. Most people will never do it. And it's a stupid idea, so don't do it. But you kind of have that idea like, oh, you're your own boss. You're not your own boss. That's a whole other discussion. But you love that freedom, especially when you're at a corporate job. Like, oh, wouldn't it be great if I owned a cute little bakery in Vermont? Or I could quit my job and get out of here and, like, you know, run a fashion design studio. And, like, we're going to be honest, that does not happen for most people. So what do? They want to watch people who are doing it. They want to watch people who are brave enough to take the risks. And me living in New York City, in Brooklyn, people want to see what's going on in Brooklyn. Apparently, like, you know, we're the biggest thing in the world or something, and New York City is really super glamorous. So people want to see the life of two people making it in Brooklyn, or, like, living that New York experience. So that's why they're following. They're following for not just your specials. They're not just following to see if you're having a sale. They're following because they want to see you. They want to be a part of this. So really, I think the best way to be interesting on Twitter is to be an interesting person. So you have to have that dichotomy in your life. You have to, personally, when you're doing anything professionally, you have to find ways to get out and talk to people as a human being. You need to go out to cafes. You need to meet up with your friends. You actually have to work on your interpersonal skills without your phones and without technology, and build that up. Build up talking points. Create humanness inside of you. Once you do that, it gives you more leverage to talk to people. You can talk about, I talk about hard things. I never talk about bad customers. That's one no-no. If you're having a problem with something, you don't talk about bad customers. Refrigerator breaks. I make jokes about it. I tell people the hardships. I tell people stuff that's going on with my kids. Like that thing I just said about the no pants thing on Christmas Eve. That got tweeted. Moms all over the world follow me. Because, again, everyone wants to start their own business. Everybody's going nuts with their kids. So they like seeing me struggle the same way they do. They like seeing that we're no different from them. And they live vicariously through us. You have to talk to people. Not talk at them. Talk to them. Get people feeling like they're part of this. That they're integral to your success. Ask them for ideas. I crowdsource occasionally flavors. Not all that, you know, I don't necessarily always follow them, but I like having that discussion with people. Why? Because not just they feel part of the process, it helps them engage their creativity. And a lot of people don't have creative jobs. A lot of people are just going through the motions every day. So when you give them those those moments where they get to flex muscles in their brain, well, the brain's not a muscle, okay, but they get to exercise things that are not normally asked in their lives. That's when they get really passionate about your company. And when they're passionate about their company, they tell everybody they know about your company. I have people, I've seen this on Twitter, people evangelizing my company who have never had anything from our store, because we don't ship. I have people in San Francisco tweeting their friends in New York, people who are visiting, going, as long as you go to New York, you have to go to this place and try it for me. I've had people drive in from West Virginia. I've had people drive in from Minnesota just to come meet us. Last week I had people from Brazil. They came from Brazil and got on the train for like 45 minutes to meet us. And that's insane to me. But they come in and they get the same interaction from me that I would give on Twitter. So you have to follow that up in person. You can't just be tweeting to people nice and then give them a lousy customer service experience. It's all related. So if you're working for a company in social media, you need to be communicating with your customer service department. Now, since I was late because I suck at life, I really want to open this up to questions and discussion. I don't want to talk at you, I want to talk with you. So, if you guys have any questions at all that you feel I can answer, if you want to start a conversation or discussion about something, go ahead. Any? You all look terrific. There you go, you!
So you run all of your own social media accounts?
Mm-hmm.
That's like a huge thing now, especially like in PR, people are running accounts for people.
Uh-huh.
So, just was curious.
If you're going to run accounts for people, one of my business partners does that for another company, you definitely need to know about the company and possibly use it. Become a consumer of that. And again, like I was saying, interface, learn about the people who are doing it, kind of become the people who are doing it. Because when you're passionate about something, remember, you're the first evangelist. I run everything off my phone. Everything. And I'm always out, I'm always seeing new things and becoming interested, and I take people around my day. The other big platform that I'm using right now is Instagram. And what I love about Instagram is that I'm able to cross-post to Facebook, and that's actually where I've gotten all my traffic from Facebook. People don't respond well to questions. It's just noise to them. People love responding to photos, especially what I do. I'm on food, People love food porn. Learn how to take a good picture. Learn, if you can take an elective in the school, take a photography class, or read up on that. Especially with the iPhones, the cameras getting better and better. My social media game has completely changed after I wrote a book. And I did all the food styling for my book. And while I was in photography, I was really studying the photographer, asking a lot of questions. I ask photographers questions all the time, and then I studied like really good accounts. And I practice like crazy. A good Instagram account where it looks like you know what you're doing will engage people more than anything else.
And you're still just using your phone?
Still on my phone. Almost.
All those pictures?
Yeah, that's on my phone. Sometimes I have butter and flour on it. I write on that, and that's all my phone. But I will sometimes take half an hour to get a good picture. I'll wait for natural light. I will food style it like crazy. But then I take pictures of my day. I just took a picture of the campus in the snow because it looks super pretty. People go, oh my God, she got to lecture before. She got to take the train for an hour and 45 minutes. But it's kind of cool. And again, it makes me look important. Another kind of secret is that you can manipulate the public's perception of what's going on with your social media account. Not lie. You cannot lie. People will find out if you lie. Trust me, they will find out if you lie. But you can absolutely sometimes make yourself seem bigger than you are, which is a great thing for a small fish in a big pond. You can create opportunities for yourself like pop-up shops. We really became very big on pop-up shops. Pop-up shops don't make any money. They make no money whatsoever, but they look really good.
Can you explain what those are?
Pop-up shops is when, real estate in Manhattan is expensive, and a lot of brands will just come in for either a day or a month at a certain place and just open up a shop. And we used to do that a lot on weekends in different spots, opening up in different places, because that creates scarcity. And we were only a wholesale company for 5 years, and occasionally doing these pop-ups. And it created kind of a cult following and a scarcity. We ran our company a lot like an indie band, because food is the new rock. So, to build fans, you're doing like a one-time only show. I'm very busy with my kids. I really play that into the social media because people understand the fact that part of scarcity for us, a lot of times scarcity is just logistics for us. But I don't want to be open about that and say, oh, it's a logistical problem or I can't find a space right now. So you take pictures of your personal life. people are like, oh wow, all this other stuff is going on. Sometimes I'm working on a project that takes like 3 to 6 months in development. I can't announce anything, but people don't want to see dead air. So you kind of can manipulate the things that you're saying or doing or what you're releasing to build interest, to gauge interest, and really show that you're being sometimes more active than you are. In January, I watch a lot of TV in January because December freaking kills me. I sleep like 2 hours a night in December. But I don't want people to think that I'm not doing anything. I don't want to tell people that we're slow because everybody is on a freaking diet this month. But February 22nd, I've actually done numbers with past 7 years. By February 22nd, if you're on a diet, that's when you fail. Or that's when you've completely given up. And then you're all mine. But I can't tell people like, hey, I'm like fucking around on the internet today because it's snowing out. I'm writing new recipes. That's what I'll do. And then I will photograph in detail on Instagram or live tweet the things that I'm doing, the processes. I'll talk about it. I give people, I start making them hungry. I start making them excited for things. So again, that's how you turn a negative into a positive. You know, manipulate your audience like that. Get them excited in different ways. Any more questions? By the way, I have like really bad ADD if you don't notice, and even though I took my Adderall today, it doesn't really do a lot. And I've had four shots of espresso so far, or almost 4, about 3 of them. So some things might not make sense, or some things might make ultra sense. I might be on another level right now. We don't know. I think I've got 15 minutes left. All right, who else has more questions or wants to start discussions? Don't be scared. There are no such thing as stupid questions. Yes?
You crossed over into like any digital spheres, like YouTube or video?
I'm actually working on that right now. YouTube, I feel, it's a very, you know what's cool about YouTube and bad about YouTube is that anybody can be out there. So there's that, but there's also a ton of noise out there. You know, there's a lot of like kind of lousy product. So I didn't want to ever put anything out there that was just crap, especially because there's so much well-produced crap. And
You've got videos of you with Nick Lachey.
I do. Well, I do real TV,
How was
but I
that?
actually had a meeting with the producer from Viacom yesterday about creating a show directly to YouTube because I had been speaking to Food Network and I had been speaking to FYI and Travel Channel and working with a few big production houses, and I really don't like it. Television's terrible, you know, especially food television. And when I do VH1, I'm live. I love being live. I love the unpredictability of it. So, and I love having creative control over things. They make you do a lot of stupid shit on TV. A lot of stupid shit. So I'm working with the producer to kind of do a more live show and go directly to YouTube, so I have that creative content. But again, you want to have people in the room who definitely know what they're doing. And aside from that, you can't just throw out a YouTube show, tweet, I have a YouTube show, watch it. We're working on right now a strategy for different platforms. We're working on something that's going to be a very condensed kind of interview/food show that might last 5 to 10 minutes. But there's going to be a complimentary podcast that's 45 to an hour, you know. There's going to be a lot of photographs, again, on Instagram, supporting that. And it'll be supporting, like, we're working on something that's possibly, like, people come to my house and have dinner, like, different, like, hopefully Nick comes with the baby. Because the baby's really beautiful.
And you just want to be able to call him Nick, be honest.
Nick is, like, you know, I treat Nick so bad on television, but Nick Lachey is the nicest human being I've ever met. It's, like, scary how nice he is. Just so everyone knows. And he's better looking in person. And he's wonderful. But, like, there'll be, like, food porn pictures of it, you know? And I don't want to do any active cooking on television, I realize, because it is kind of boring and people aren't really gravitating to that anymore. So we're going to start an additional vlog in tandem to my business site that gives more recipes. I have a cookbook out. I'm working on another cookbook, but right now I'm working with my publishers on different concepts. I really kind of wanted to do more of a savory, adventurous sort of thing, but currently that's not my brand. So you have to find ways to segue your brand into other things. You can't just make jumps or leaps into other things. So again, it's not just putting things out on YouTube. You really kind of need to think, what's going to make people watch this? Why is it compelling? I've been working on a concept for YouTube for over a year now. And aside from that, I'm studying a ton of YouTube. I'm studying a ton of who's putting out digital channels, what media companies are putting out digital channels, what people are actually watching and what's just crap, you know? You don't want to put something out, fail, and then you kind of don't get another chance to get people's attention. unless it's so bad people think it's hilarious. And sometimes that works. Like, did you show them that social media rap video from that conference?
No.
Do you remember that video?
Yes.
Yes. You should show that.
I
video.
like them.
I know I like them too. And you know what? That was so bad it was good. It was like the
That's true. I will.
It was the showgirls of social media. And you know that you watched it, you know it was bad, but you know what? And that gave me a lot of insight into what old people think of social media. And old people are kind of running the game right now. But you know what? Older people, they still know a lot more than a lot of like the younger people, and that's kind of, it's kind of cool. Like, you know, I'm 33, 34. I'm in the middle of it, so I am like, I'm the beginning of the millennial generation. I'm 1980. So I see a lot of older people and how, you know, these are your bosses. You know, as more socially adept as we are, the people who are 50 or 60 are running the company, and you have to learn how to convince them things are a good idea. At the same time, things are evolving so quickly. What's relevant 5 years ago is not relevant anymore. Like I said, Facebook, I don't feel is as relevant for small businesses, social media wise. Because people don't want to have that conversation, and also people don't want to look at your damn advertisements on social media, on Facebook. Facebook people psychologically feels a very private space for them. It's where they can interact with their friends. It's not where they want to hear McDonald's, you know, it's not where they want to hear you. All right, more questions. You in the back, make up the question.
How did you build your following in the beginning, and then I'm saying non-social media wise, just people interaction, and then how did that change through social media?
Okay, like I said before, your customer service department needs to be tied into social media. You have to be a nice person. If you're a jerk, nobody's going to care about you. And to make your customer service department happen, especially if you're a small business, you need to make sure everybody's happy at work. You know, tell people, it's really easy to do this. You don't need to send them on like big corporate retreats or buy them stuff. Tell them they're doing a good job. Be nice to people when you walk in the office. Treat people with respect. That's all anybody really wants, is they want respect. They want to know that they're valued. And when they do that, they can be a lot nicer to people on the front lines when they're representing your company. So that was the first phase, is that we're telling people about these things. We're also sort of building strategic relationships with other companies. Like when we did a pop-up, we wouldn't do it alone. We do it with 4 or 5 people. And when people would come, I'm gregarious obviously, I would sit down and I would talk to them. If there were no lines for customers, I talk to people for 20 minutes. You give them a compliment. You ask them about what they do. You ask them questions. Let them talk to you. Think that you're genuinely interested in them. And again, people love the human contact because they don't get it as much as they used to. And then you follow them on Twitter, or they follow you. I don't follow a ton of people on Twitter anymore because it's really hard for me to keep up. But whenever somebody tweets at me, I tweet them back and I engage them in a conversation.
And I think a bit of the groundwork too that you're probably so modest you don't even think of is if you've ever been to Robicelli's and had their food, it's fucking fantastic. Like I know Allison because
You spoke at a conference.
When was that conference?
2010.
Yeah. And I ran a panel on how to do PR for a small business.
Mm-hmm.
And I was leaving, I had to go back to work, and I picked up a cupcake and I walked to the elevator, and as I was walking to the elevator, I took a bite of the cupcake and I stopped and I turned around and I walked back to the table and I went, I'm sorry, where did these come from? Because I've never had anything so amazing in my entire life. And Allison was sitting on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
So if you have a crappy product,
You always need to
if
back
your
up
social
what you
media team is fantastic,
Yeah.
you might hide that for a while, but you're not going to hide it
No,
forever.
I mean, you can't fake the funk. One of my college professors taught me that. This whole, I was in BU in 1998. I had this great teacher, Jim Spruill, who was looked like George Clinton, act like George Clinton. He was like a former Black Panther, and he was said, you can't fake the funk. And it's like the smartest thing I've ever heard. And especially now, this was before Twitter. I didn't even have a cell phone in 1998 because it was freaking expensive and I was poor. But people will know eventually when you're bullshitting them. You know, this is accountability. Dominique Gonçalves, the Cronut guy, somebody filmed a mouse in his place, got shut down for 3 days. You know, if you're a cunt to a customer, people are going to videotape it and put it on YouTube. You know, don't be a cunt.
Thanks, Allison.
You're welcome.
Jesuit school.
I'm from Brooklyn. This is how I talk. It's a good word. Own it, ladies. Own it. It's ours. You know, be a nice person. Try not to hide things. When things go wrong, be apologetic. You know, again, small businesses, things go wrong all the time. let it, be transparent about it. Own it. Don't let people think that you're quivering in fear. And again, people will forgive you when things go wrong. People will forgive you if they see the humanness, if they see genuine apologies, if they see you working on things. And we see people screw up all the time on social media. People put planes in their vaginas on social media by accident. We all remember that story. You haven't showed them that story? What was it, United Air? Was it United?
I think.
That they
I
tweeted
don't
that
remember.
porn photo with the
Yeah.
plane in her
Yeah, I
mouth?
saw that.
Yeah, it was bad.
That's probably the worst screw up I've ever seen in my life. Like, that was really bad.
But I think that speaks to something that you do too.
Uh-huh.
Like, you own your social media presence. It is you. It is
Mhm.
not an intern. And I think that's a real dichotomy with a lot of brands. A lot of
Yeah.
brands, and I've talked to you guys about some of it, there's a lot of brands that say, oh, I want a 20-year-old to run my social media presence because they're young and they get it and
Uh-huh.
they'll figure that out. And they don't bother to give them the heart of the brand and
Yeah.
help them understand what the brand really is. And you haven't bothered with that at all, which is an interesting choice because
Uh-huh.
you're busy as hell and yet you're out there doing all of this. You don't have some intern helping
No.
you with your social media.
It's my job. I've had other people, like investors and possible investors in the company who I've said no to many times, say I have to turn this social media over to somebody else, or like you have to make it more PG. I mean, I use the F word 135 times in my book, which is about cupcakes, which is a record for a cupcake book. But it's who I am, and people appreciate that and they like it. They like the realness of it. I'm not Susie Homemaker. Women identify with that. But I mess up sometimes, and I apologize for it. And you know what? I try to engage people in thoughtful conversations when I do mess up, and they appreciate that as well. It's not a blanket apology. And again, like I said before, you have to be a consumer to the brand. You might not understand it. And again, companies will say, I want a 20-year-old. And you don't know everything when you're 20 that you do when your 20s are kind of the most volatile years of your life. I mean, think about when you were 18 versus what you are now. And the kind of cool, scary thing about aging is that you can look yourself 2 years ago and go, God, I was a moron back then. That's going to continue, especially in your 20s. You start off in your 20s like, I kind of know what I'm doing. I'm a grown-up, but I still feel like I'm 16. And then you end up 25 and you're like, I thought I know what I'm doing by now, but I feel like I'm 12. And then kind of when you're 30 is great. Just spoiler alert, being 30 is like the best freaking thing ever. Because you're like, I'm kind of done with everybody's shit. I feel like I'm 10. But I'm owning it, So you're going to get progressively smarter, progressively better. So it's okay. Just don't have that hubris when you're 20. Understand that again. Your boss might not understand Twitter and know what he's doing, but he knows a lot about the company. He knows a lot about the consumers. He's been there a while. You can learn something from everybody you ever meet. You should learn a new thing every day. Aim for 5 new things every day. You're going to become really awesome if you learn 5 new things every day. And try to learn as much about your company. Again, use it. Even if you don't need it, try to use it. See what it feels like to be a consumer. See what it feels like to be difficult. Remember, there's people who are using your product or your company for the first time who literally don't know it. They have no experience with it. And that's a great set of eyes you have. So identify the problems you have understanding it. And if you're a consumer and you're understanding it and you're having those problems, you can address that. You can create a very welcoming environment because that's what you are. You're a host. You're hosting the cocktail party or the formal tea at the beginning of somebody's relationship with you. You're inviting them into your home. Welcome to our company. Let's get settled in. Let's make you an evangelist for our brand. Let's get you excited about our brand. You can get people excited about anything. You can get people excited about tire irons and whatever, because if you make people feel special, everybody wants to feel special. So, I mean, that's kind of your job. Any other questions? Yes?
How have you made your brand like a New York hotspot? How like some of the other cupcake places and bakeries
Yes.
downtown. I mean uptown more.
I am very authentic and I understood where I fit in Brooklyn. I mean, I was very lucky. Brooklyn started getting hot around the time we started. And I'm a native New Yorker. And I understood that my place was, as the native New Yorker in the group, everybody in the Brooklyn food scene is like from Ohio. And I was sort of that bridge between old Brooklyn and new Brooklyn. I realized that I'm young, I have the family, which a lot of them don't have, I have the credibility, which a lot of them don't have as New Yorkers. I'm also from South Brooklyn, which is starting to blow up, but has not been trendy, and I refuse to leave it. And by doing that, I ended up getting the respect of the press, because I ended up being an original voice in a very crowded field. I've seen so many people come and go. The other thing is that I have a culinary background. A lot of these people just thought, oh, it'll be fun to start an artisanal bitters or jam company, and they're all come and they're done, because the food business is tough as hell. But I knew that, my husband knew that. We've been doing this since we were like in our early 20s. No money and long hours didn't frighten us. So, and also again, be an interesting person. Be interesting, and then the press is going to want to engage you, because I always give really good quotes. And then, with Twitter especially, I like to say, Twitter is the world's biggest cocktail party. Twitter is the biggest networking party you will ever be at in your life. Favorite or follow everybody you find interesting. Follow everybody who's relevant in your field. You know, follow the writers, the critics, the bloggers. The bloggers of today are the editors of tomorrow. You know, the lower strain reporters who are 26 years old, 22 years old, if you get them to be evangelists for your brand then, when they're running the show, when they're 30, 35, you know, you're going to own their publications. I have the editor of Tasting Table, which is, and she's just become the editor, is become a very good friend of mine. I go to her house, we have parties, you know. She calls me when she's sad, but I became friends with her when she was doing an article on me on CNN, and created a personal relationship with her and followed up over Twitter. You know, I follow her, she tweets something, I tweet her back. Again, not as a canned response, not as an automatic reply, but personal things. That creates your network. Facebook is like inviting people to dinner after you meet them at the cocktail party. You can become friends with a lot of these journalists on Facebook, and that's where you start meaningful conversations, where a lot of people will you know, enter it, but it's never, you know, on Facebook, it's never more than like 5 or 10 people on a personal level. I friend these people personally, not through my business account. You develop relationships with important people in your field and people who you respect, and it really opens a lot of doors for you. Anybody else? Yes?
Do you use Yelp and TripAdvisor?
I fucking hate those bastards at Yelp. They're assholes. But again, the vice president of Yelp is a big fan of ours, and a really nice guy. Yelp is like, it's important, but I hate them. I do a lot of Yelp events. They do these great things to give back to Yelpers, to elite Yelpers. I always do them. I give out free product, and then when I'm there, I talk to, again, that personal thing, I talk to the Yelpers. I get involved. They're big fans of ours, because again, our product is really good. They like the customer service. They've run Yelp events for elite members at my store just because they like hanging out. So it's always kind of good to know who the elite Yelpers are and reach out to them. But for the most part, I know I've seen a lot of backlash in the restaurant community against Yelp, and we're starting to turn against it. Really straight up, Yelp has called me incessantly for the past 3 years and said if I give them money, they'll make the bad things go away. And that is like, that's
The
so
mafia.
shady. No, yeah, they do that all the time. You're like, or like, if you pay us enough money, we'll put an ad for you and your stars on your competitors' pages. Very open secret in the business. I'd be surprised if they're around another year or two, because that's really messed up. But if you know elite Yelpers who are coming into your business, have a good relationship with them, because they do weed out a lot of the bad stuff on Yelp. Also, if you meet people from Yelp, which I do, I catered one of their weddings, these are good friends to have. Again, Twitter, go find these people, engage them, get as many people on your team as possible. You know, people like you, they'll help you out. My network is gigantic, you know? And what was the other thing, TripAdvisor?
Yeah.
I don't really use it because I'm very far out. It's kind of it's like I'm not a huge tourist spot because I am so far out, so I don't appeal to them. Also, the direction my business has taken is I'm doing a lot of food service. I do a lot of business-to-business stuff, which I make more money that way, honestly. But I kind of pray to fervor. Okay, good companies like Google, Viacom, who I work with, they all use corporate cafeterias. And they're trying to make their employees as happy as possible. Like, I've gone in, like, was it in Google I was at? I was at some company, they have a puppy room. And you go in and there's just puppies, and you can play with them if you're stressed out. You make them a half-an-hour appointment to just be with the puppies. COMM has yoga studios, they have workshops, Google has massages. Google's like the weirdest place I've ever been, but, you know, it's intense. I don't even know how people leave Google. I mean, and they don't want you to leave. They hold on to their talent by giving them like everything. So again, when you're creating fervor amongst other people and they work for these companies, they start to recommend you, and that's how you kind of get in. So again, I know the needs for my company. I've identified the things that people in, you know, in where I want to go are, and I've directed my focus towards those things. I think a lot of things, you know, when you spread them around too much, it becomes kind of watered down or noise. Or if you're good and you have a social media team, everybody takes their specialty. Find the thing that you're really good at. You know, again, if you don't have a personality, some people don't, it's okay. TripAdvisor is more for you. Statistics are more for you. All right, anything else?
Here's a question.
Mhm.
Some of the things you do, like, was it last summer you did the Jump the Shark summer?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You come up with campaigns, you come up with events. To what extent are you creating the campaign and then using social media to push it? And to what extent are you creating the campaign because you think it'll do well on social media? Like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
I get a lot of bizarre ideas at weird times, and Jump the Shark was designed specifically for social media. So Jump the Shark was, it was satire. And I know it sounds funny for a bakery to be doing satire. When my book came out and I was doing television interviews, or actually just meeting with producers, they were like, do you make cronuts? And I'm like, no, I don't make cronuts. And they were like, well, do you anything like a cronut? Like, did you ever take like a cupcake and like bake it in a chicken pot pie, or like some kind of like crazy thing like that? I'm like, no, this is really stupid. And then ramen burgers came out, and then everybody just started trying to like take things and put them in other things, and like, it reminded me of that Monty Python sketch, The Society for Putting Things on Top of Other Things. Nobody watches Python? Jesus Christ. Okay, first you should all do that. And, you know, it just became really, really silly. And I know a lot of my friends in the food media also thought it was silly, but so many people were chasing that dragon because it gets web hits, it gets page views, it gets, we have an attention span like this, so people are just looking for like the next kind of crazy, ridiculous thing. So it's the summers are slow for us, and you know, we're kind of bored, we want to have fun, and I have this idea, I'm like, well, let's, you know, they want it, let's do it. I'm like, let's just jump the shark, and every weekend we'll do the most ridiculous thing possible. And I'll try to find the press release and send it to you or whatever. And it was on my Tumblr. And it was like, we're intentionally doing this. You can come over, like there'll be a limited amount every day. You know, I'm not making any more. There are no holds. If you want it, you can get here at 8 a.m. on Saturday. I don't care how hot it is. You can Instagram it, you can talk about it, and then when everything sells out, you can talk to all your friends about how you're better than them because you got blank and then they didn't. And we're really satirizing the cronut, and we're satirizing like, just kind of like, I mean, not that I have a problem with Dominique Gonçalves personally, he's a very nice guy, but I mean, even he thinks it's a little ridiculous. It's the fetishization of food and kind of the way that the media is trying to get us to produce gimmicks rather than good food. And I mentioned that. I was like, you want gimmicks? I'm going to give you gimmicks. But again, the food was good. You know, I am not producing crap. So the first week was waffle cake. The next week was cooked pudding, which it was a trifle, but we wrote this whole like article about us that we were revolutionizing cake and pudding together. And they were like, some say this is a trifle. And I was like, I put a fake quote. I'm like, you know, it can't be a trifle because it doesn't contain the words cake and pudding and it's not trademarked. And the media loved it because they thought it was so funny and they were in on the joke and they got it. So they were tweeting a lot about these fake press releases and how silly it was. First We Feast picked it up, Gothamist picked it up, because everybody kind of knows, like, some people, like, I was out to dinner with the food editor from Gothamist a couple weeks ago, and she's like, you know, there's journalism we want to do and things we want to say, but that doesn't make us money. At the end of the day, their job is not to tell the truth, their job is to tell a story, their job is to get people to click on listicles, which they hate, but they know makes money, and, you know, to generate revenue so their site stays relevant and stays on. So by letting them in on the joke, they love that. They love that somebody else was kind of having that. So we did that every weekend during the summer. It raised a lot of revenue. It created a lot of buzz. Again, sometimes you do things not necessarily to get people in the door. You get people to talk about you. So when they are around, they come in the door. And we did this thing called Nutella lasagna. The first thing we actually did for Jump the Shark Summer, we got a big whiteboard like this, and we wrote, blank is the new cupcake. That's like the food media's favorite saying. Move over cupcake, Danishes are in town, or whatever. I believe this week it's arugula. And it was eclairs 6 weeks ago. Eclairs are already over, now it's arugula. We have a very short life cycle with these things. So we wrote every stupid thing we could think of, like green Jello. And then we're like, well, what is the internet like? Bill Murray, so we made Ecto Cooler Jello. Then we did Canada is the new cupcake. And we made a maple apple bread pudding with slow roasted maple pork belly and whiskey sauce. And then one week it was noodle kugel. And I'm Italian. Internet likes lasagna. Nutella ends with an LA, and lasagna begins with an LA. And we're like, okay, we'll make this thing called Nutella lasagna. And it was really good. Really good. We took a picture of it. People loved it. You know, didn't make that much because, again, it's super limited edition. And it was like the last week of August. Everybody's out of town. But the picture started doing well on the internet, and people kept coming in and asking for it. And we're like, okay, you know what, we'll do it around Christmas time. Lasagna's a big thing around Christmas. And also, it was easy to transport. Like, that was our whole extent with it. It's easy to transport, it's good for Christmas. So, like, second week of December, I'm already, like, crazy booked for Christmas as it is. And I'm sending out the menu to somebody, and I was like, oh shit, Matt. I'm like, we forgot to put Nutella lasagna on the menu. I'm like, you still want to do that? And he's like, yeah, put it on. He's like, again, good for transporting. I just tweet out, by the way, everyone, Nutella lasagna is coming back for Christmas. And food editor from Documents happened to be on right around then. Again, she follows everything we do. And she's like, this was the only one I missed, because she came down every week, I'm a big fan. And she writes an article, all your dreams are coming true, Nutella lasagna is coming back. Gizmodo picked it up, Time magazine picked it up. I was oblivious, because again, December I slept 2 hours a night. And all of a sudden it starts showing up on my Facebook feed like crazy. And I'm like, that's my picture. That's on my Instagram. And my friend was like, have you seen this? I'm like, I had barely slept in 2 days. He's like, go check it out. Go Google what's happening. And I was on bustle. All of a sudden it crosses the pond to the UK. Glamour magazine called me and my husband Heroes of the Week. So I start 2 tabs in TweetDeck because some people were spelling it wrong, so I started both misspellings. And it's going to Peru, it's going to Italy, the president of Nutella is coming to my place this afternoon. Where else was it? France, really big in England, all over Europe. It just kind of like went insanely viral to the point that we sold out for Christmas 2 weeks before Christmas. And you can't predict when things are going to go viral. You can't put something out there and just expect it to go viral. Sometimes it goes again viral 4 months after you've made it. So it's still kind of a weird thing for us that realizing the thing, when satire becomes the thing that it's satirizing, it's really bizarre. But again, it came from a place of us having a lot of fun. And people want to have fun with you. And a lot of people like understand that the media is I still click on listicles. I think they're stupid, but I click on them all the time. You know, so creating that kind of jovial fun thing, people loved it. People ate it up. You got to think differently. You can't think like everybody else. You know, you have to be you. Your brand has to have a voice. If the voice is the same as every other company, it's noise. You know, find your individuality. Be exciting. People are going to appreciate you for that. Anything else? Anybody want to talk about other things? Again, no stupid questions. I get asked stupid questions all the time. Stupid questions can be the funnest ones. Anyone? You. Ask a question.
You were to like start your business now, what would you do differently? Or would you keep it the same?
I'm always going to say keep it the same because there's absolutely no point in regretting anything. You have your situations. Everybody should buy my book. It's also a memoir besides a cookbook. It tells a lot of our story, which is really cool. And it was rated one of the best cookbooks of 2013. So you get your money's worth. Also makes a great present for Valentine's Day and all birthdays. But the first incarnation of our company was a catering / gourmet shop. And it opened the weekend before the stock market crashed, and I lost everything in a day. I lost all my clientele in a day. The cupcakes and other baked goods came out of desperation. We were trying to find something to get people in the door. And again, this just comes from spitballing and I think this is so important in small business too, not having meetings upon meetings upon meetings about talking about things. It's a lot of action, a lot of going out and just kind of doing things. And being brave enough to do these things. Because the more meetings we have, the more watered down and generic the things will become. And suddenly we started noticing a huge market for these cupcakes and for the brownies and everything, and that's what was taking off. So when the business closed, we had nothing. I had like $200,000 worth of debt. I was, God help me, I was living in an apartment that my family owned, so I didn't have to pay rent for a while, otherwise we were going to move in with my parents. Eating leftovers for my parents so we could feed ourselves, and we took $30 in quarters and restarted the business with nothing. So I like to have not gone broke before I started my business. But at the same time, failure teaches you a lot about yourself, and that's okay. And I don't want to encourage you guys to fail because it sucks, but don't hate yourself when you fail. You have to turn every bad experience in your life into a positive. Again, like I said, you have to learn something new every day. And when lousy things happen to you, it just means good things are going to happen later on. But you have to learn from the bad stuff that happened. So I can't say I would have done anything differently because I am where I am now, and I'm seeing a lot of new opportunities now. I'm also reevaluating what I'm doing in my life. Again, I've been doing this for 7 years. I don't want to be in the same place. You know, this is the type of person I am. I'm not a stagnant person. I like reinventing myself. I like changing constantly, and I think that's also really important. Being in New York is a new now, next town. You're not thinking about what you're doing right now. You're thinking what you're doing in 6 months from now. And that's how you stay relevant. I'm still relevant after 7 years. That is ancient in New York City terms. Ancient. But it still works for me. Like when I saw Nutella lasagna hitting, I wasn't celebrating. I was kind of like, oh fuck, this is going to end soon. How do I stay relevant in 6 months? Where do I take this? What's next? You can't just sit on your laurels ever. So, if I think about one regret I have aside from the thing going broke, which I learned a lot from, sometimes I feel like I could have been more aggressive about certain things, personally, but then the other side to that I don't regret is, again, I have a mom and pop. I have a husband that I actually really, really love a lot. And I have 2 kids who I also love a lot. And I see so many chefs who are divorced who never see their kids because they put the industry first, and I knew I didn't want to end like that. If you don't have any kind of balance in your work life and your personal life, you should just give up, you know, because you've missed the entire point. You will be that person who's 40 or 50 going, what the hell did I do? So I could be a lot more successful right now. I could have like 5 or 6 stores. I could have gone to Vegas. I would also be divorced. And if I was divorced, I probably also wouldn't have the company and I'd be miserable. So you really, at the end of the day, have to kind of really think about what's important to you. You have to think about what's important to you and really just don't have regrets. Because there's no point. If you look backwards, there's no point. Look forward. Look 6 months forward. Just be like, all right, I fucked up. What's next? Don't do that again. You, ask a question. Yes, you. Make up something.
Well, you said that you didn't really you're not really looking to expand or anything like that. So do you think that like making all these like other like future ventures and other like forms of social media is like even more good?
Yeah.
Since you're already like known around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still have a brand. I'm expanding in certain ways that I know work for me, who work for my company. I could make my company valuable and sell it in a couple of years. I haven't decided necessarily what I'm going to do. I might just keep my hand in it and expand into other ventures. I mean, that, again, really cool thing about the social media age, it scares a lot of people, but again, we're young, we're like, you know, as millennials, we've grown up with this. Everything changes so fast. The opportunities I have now are not the same opportunities I had 7 years ago or even last year. There's always new platforms, not just for technology, but needs of people. So it really kind of helps to be flexible and constantly be reevaluating what you do. A, as a person, and B, professionally. Again, what's next? What do we do to kind of move on? Do you want to be in the same place? Does your company will not want to be in the same place 5 years from now necessarily as you are now? Because, I do see restaurants and companies that, I don't know how much there is in a place anymore in New York City for something to be open 150 years. That's a rarity. You know, friggin' Yona Schimmel is possibly closing. You know, the Knish place on the Lower East Side, it's been there since like 1898, and their landlord is pushing them out. It's been there since 1898, and this city doesn't have the room for that anymore. So you need to kind of find, things become obsolete too. Like the technology might be involved in, Xerox has completely changed what kind of company it is. Kodak couldn't change what kind of company it was, and they had to sell something with Polaroid. So being that kind of flexible and seeing those opportunities, if you're an entrepreneur, that'll help you a great deal. Plus, I guarantee you, if you're doing the same thing at 40 that you're doing at 25, you're going to be bored out of your freaking mind. So don't stop growing as a person. Anything else? You? Yeah, ask a question. A lot of us are shy, but you always have questions.
It's the only thing I can think of is, did you see the movie Chef, which is kind of like based on...
I know, my sous chef saw it, she said to see it. I hate watching stuff about my job, I really do. I've heard it was a great movie. A lot of chefs consulted on it, so it is going to be accurate. I liked Ratatouille, that was my favorite food movie. I cried at the end of Ratatouille sometimes. But I kind of hate watching stuff about my job at the end of the day. What the hell do I watch? It's something I put on the TV and I just fall asleep in front of it. Watching a lot of Gotham, that's pretty rad. You should watch that. But did you see it? Did you like it?
It was really good.
Okay.
Really like it.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Interesting thing about Chef. They hired Roy Choi to consult them. Roy Choi is kind of like the father of the food truck. He started a Korean barbecue taco place in LA years ago. But also, he was very urban about it. He was one of the first people to use Twitter and capitalize on Twitter to, maybe the location they were at, kind of create a fervor about it, tweet the lines. When people see lines, they just think it's because Americans, so they see the line. And he was like the first person to really integrate that, and he started the whole craze. He also, again, was from LA, didn't try to act like somebody he wasn't, didn't try to act like a stodgy chef, didn't just try to be like, tacos, 2 for $5 today, or whatever. Really gave a personal experience and account of who he was. That has evolved into a couple of books, it's evolved to a lot of TV experiences, and led to a consulting gig in a movie. Because they wanted something really exciting and really edgy and really real, The old school chef that you don't see anymore, we've seen and not heard, is not a thing. And Roy is now a rock star because of it. They were so smart about marketing that movie. Really marketed it towards us, towards our industry, so we would see it and talk about how cool and authentic it was, because again, we all have a really big following. They were inviting us to screenings, they were inviting us to private tasting events, they were letting us hobnob with Hollywood, and so many chefs are starfuckers, so they all went, and we're tweeting like crazy about it. And now the food truck they were doing is coming to LA for a couple of special events and stuff for like charity. So now that is bolstering any kind of streaming stuff they have or whatnot. Like that movie, they're trying to make a classic. And they're using that for food because, again, not a ton of great chef movies. They're usually terrible, so they had a first mover advantage, and they knew that. So that is a really smart film to study social media-wise. Because, again, when you're a first mover advantage, you get to write rules. And that's been so cool. Like in the past 5 years, once the economy collapsed, everything we knew about business was wrong. And again, like I said, I lost everything in that crash. And that was the positive I took from it. Everything we knew was gone. We had a clean slate. So now you can look at it bad, or you can look at it as a great opportunity, that we get to rebuild everything with our goals. Anything else? We're done.
Yeah.
I need a glass of water and I gotta pee. Thank you guys so much for having me. You guys were awesome. And, you've seen my website, you follow me on Twitter, or you will follow me on Twitter. If you guys had any questions, not just now, through the semester, feel free to tweet me, feel free to email me. I, do my best sometimes to get back to emails, might be a couple days late, but I'm happy to follow you guys up through the rest of the semester. And that's it. Have an awesome day today. Yeah. Do I have physical? Whoa. Sorry. Wallet. My grab Star Wars wallet my husband got me for Christmas. This one's and anybody else want some burn on the desk? There you go. Again, Sarah knows my email, my website, so feel free to come and visit me.
Or you research it.
And they've researched me. Any of you have seen that article in Japan? Tell me what it says. You look great. Oh, what's up?
You just like walk right in and like start talking.
Boom. I like speaking. I saw Megan yesterday. It's a theory of life. Oh, Peter, he's what they get next to. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna do right now. I wanna play my drone and tell you about how my life is ending. It's miserable because of my passions.
Well,
He is.
I will, I'm gonna do the experiment this weekend, and I'll have the paper next week,
Next week, which day?
hopefully Monday. If not, I'll email it Tuesday.
Sounds good.
And you were great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please, I'm Allison.
Ryan,
Brian, awesome to meet you. Please,
the compliment I give you is I had 5 AM practice of
I
not
did.
taking
I
this
wanted
class.
to. You were on my list of like people to.
Thank you so
I was
much.
like, I was like,
Seriously,
like,
email me, tweet me, if you have any questions or problems with, this class, Sarah's an awesome teacher, but I'm happy to guide you through it.
Sorry.
Yeah, and again, follow people you admire, study what they do.
Yeah.
It teaches you a lot by learning from other people.
Alright,
All right, have fun today, and do that project, don't fuck up, I'll find out about it.
I will.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I have a UP too.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, as a business owner, how does that affect you?
Sometimes,
Do you
sometimes,
ever mention it to like, I was wondering.
I just
like,
learned how to own it, you
Yeah.
know, I also have bipolar too, which I don't talk about as much, it's still stigmatized. But I do talk about that privately with some people, with like press people, which they understand, a lot of journalists, so bipolar too. I own it, you know.
You can't be normal and be a journalist.
What?
You can't be normal and be a journalist.
No, you cannot be a normal and a writer. Writers really weird. Yeah, you know, it's like a blessing and a curse sometimes. It's sometimes really hard for me to get things accomplished.
Yeah.
I have a really great partner in my husband, and I think if you have ADD, you have to have a good partner.
Yeah, I
Because
understand that.
my husband will, like, he grounds me, and he's sometimes like, okay, calm down, or